Hey, this is Ramon. I'm the managing partner of 501k. If you're interested in commercial real estate wholesaling, or if you have any questions, or you would like me to mentor you and teach you how to wholesale commercial real estate, or you have a deal that you'd like us to collaborate on, please reach out. You can reach me at askRamonQuestions, and that's questions plural, at gmail.com. I'd love to collaborate with people that watch my content. I have a gentleman right now that I started working with, and we're doing his very first deal. And his very first deal is going to be 7 figures. We should be closing on that here in the next little bit. This could easily be you. Go ahead and reach out. Would love to work with you. Would love to get to know you. Let's make this happen. Reach out. But for now, let's get back to the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the 90-day commercial real estate wholesaling accelerator. Today we're going to be talking about something that's very important, right? It's a small component of the entire process, but it's one that's very important. It requires, we're going to go over it just briefly, right? I'll give you some key highlights, some insights, some tips, and but it definitely requires a lot more than just a quick little video. But this will be a quick video. I think you'll get a lot from it. So here we go. So calling developers. Once again, like always, we're playing this like a game of chess. You got to think about it a few moves ahead. So this video is for you if you already have, right, a commercial piece of property, right, a piece of land, right? That's what we're going to focus on is a piece of land, and you're looking to wholesale it to a developer. Or if you're looking to find an off-market piece of land, right, in a certain market, and you want to wholesale that to a developer, right? So whether you have the piece of land or you're going to, go and look for one, this video is for you. And what you'll get from this video is you'll understand how to approach this, right? How to approach these conversations with these developers. You'll understand what the mindset is before you talk to them and the mindset during the conversations, right? Very important. So let's get into it. So number one, you want to create value for a developer, right? So you got to go into it thinking about it from their perspective, right? What do they want, right? How do I create value for them? And one of the things that you do, right, and that's number two, is you want to make this as easy for them as possible, right? For them to evaluate the deal. So what that means is if you have a piece of land, right? Let's say hypothetically this piece of land would be perfect, right, for some high-end homes, right? Just as an example, right? This could apply to apartment buildings or anything else. So you want to do as much of your due diligence as possible, right? You don't want to come to them with a piece of land and go, "Hey, I got this great piece of land, and it's located here and here, and got it under contract, and wanted to see if you're interested." Right? That's, if it's an absolutely amazing location, right, and you got it for a screaming price, that might work. But why take a chance, right? What if it's not as great as you think it is, right? Because you're not, especially if you're starting out, you're not necessarily the expert in that market. You might know some, right? You might have done some research, but it might not be a screaming deal. It might be one of those where they're like, well, it's got potential, right? But now they're going to start asking you a bunch of questions, right? So to make it easy for them, right? Number two, to make it easy for them, what you want to do is you want to, ahead of time, before you ever call them, do a bunch of the homework, right? Call, the zoning, right? Figure out what the zoning is. If you want to get it rezoned, call the zoning department, right? Find out if it can be rezoned and under what conditions. You're not going to actually go through that process because that takes a long time typically. There are exceptions, but typically it takes a very long time. You want to call utilities, right? See where the connection points are, right? To see how far the developer is going to have to bring in water and sewer, right? Because that adds to the development cost. You might want to call the power company, right? You might want to call the heating company, right? That provides natural gas to find out, where their connection points are. With the power company, going back to the power company, a lot of times they have easements, and a lot of times they have all these special conditions. And even though, here's something, just a little tip. Sometimes I had a piece of land, I still got that piece of land, where I saw the poles, right, the power lines, and they were right across the street. And I thought, oh, this is going to be cheap, right? It's going to cost us, $10,000 to bring power to our lot. But then it turns out that it wasn't that easy, right? Once you actually call the power company, they broke it down for me, right? Because it didn't make any sense for me. I'm like, why can't we just get the power from across the street? They explained it to me, it made sense, and it went from 10,000 to now it's significantly more than that. So significantly more. So, anyways, so you want to do a lot of that homework, right, as much as possible ahead of time, so that so that when you bring it to the developer, that it's a relatively easy decision, right? Either they like the deal or they don't, like I said. And then also, right, as far as the mindset, right, number three, you also want to keep in mind that you want to do a lot of deals with them, right? You don't want to go into this because they'll sense it, right? If you're just trying to do a quick deal and get in, get out, they'll sense it, right? They can tell that, right? It's energy. It's especially with developers, because developers are usually, in my experience, right? These are pretty savvy people, right? They're kind of, they bootstrap themselves to become developers, and they've made it to the top. And I said to the top because as far as the food chain, right? Like, they're towards the top of that food chain, right? Not at the top, but towards the top. There's still some levels above that. And anyways, but the point is, they're pretty savvy. They're intuitive. They can read people. They can read your voice. They can read your um, kind of, they can kind of, usually, right, they can kind of read your intentions. So you want to go into with the mindset that you want to do multiple deals with them, right? Which ties in with number four, which is you want to earn, right, a long-term relationship with them, right? You want to be able to earn a long-term relationship with them, because if you're in a market, right, and that's the best way to do it, is to pick a market you like and then specialize there, right? And then once you got people helping you out, then you can look for another market and specialize there. But you don't want to spread yourself out too thin with a bunch of different markets that you just superficially understand. So if you're in a single market, going back to number four, chances are you're going to want to, if you're going to want to do more deals right there, you might be coming back to them. And ideally, you'd want to come back to them. And even if you don't come back to them, right, you want to have a good reputation in that market. So you have a good relationship with the buyers. You want to have a good relationship with the sellers. You want to have a good relationship with the title companies, and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, and then number five, don't be greedy with your fee, right? Understand this is commercial real estate. You're gonna make six figures. I mean, that's just a given, if it's a good deal, right? But sometimes you'll find a deal where you could make a lot more, but just be careful not to get too greedy. You want to make sure that you leave enough meat on the bone so that it's still an exciting deal for them, right? A tantalizing deal for them, something that they can get excited about, right? You're bringing it to them and they're like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to make this happen one way or another, right? It's such a good deal, even if they have to partner up with somebody, right? Because it's that good of a deal. So, yeah, so just keep that in mind. Now, as far as your mindset when during the conversation, right? Make sure you're professional, right? And that means all sorts of things, right? Make sure you don't send, if you're sending emails, for example, right? Just as an example, if you're sending emails, don't send, proofread your emails, right? If you're sending text messages, make sure that it ties in, real nicely with number two, which is be respectful of their time, right? Text messages should be short, brief, and to the point. Same thing with calls, right? Once you've, even when you call them the very first time, you want to be friendly, but you want to get right to the point. You want to talk to them about what they're interested in. They're busy, right? They're developing projects. They might have multiple projects. They have, I don't know, half a dozen or a couple dozen people working for them, right? On one project, multiple projects. They have all sorts of things that they're trying to coordinate and get right. And so you want to be respectful of their time, be punctual, right? Always super punctual. And like I said, be professional, right? Um, Depending on a number of factors, right? You always want to dress at the very minimum as business casual, right? Now there are exceptions to that, but generally, like, take the time, right? Don't go in there like a slob, right? Because it's just not good, right? It's yeah. Ask good questions. So one of the things that you could do, right? And it won't always help, but sometimes it will, right? If you use ChatGPT and you give ChatGPT a context, right? And give it the context of who the developer is, who you are, what the project looks like, why you think the project is such a great deal. But if you take the time to do all that, right, and you give it all that, to ChatGPT, and you ask it to give you some good questions, and let's say it gives you 10 questions, right? Chances are, at least in my experience, like at least a third of those questions are really good ones. And then the other third are going to trigger, it's going to trigger you to think of some great questions, right? And then a third of them are probably just throwaway questions, right? But it really helps to use ChatGPT. But right, getting back to the point, ask good questions. Don't ask fundamental, just dumb, silly questions, things that you should already know, right? Because that just lets them know you haven't done your homework, right? And that you're a newbie. So make sure you have good questions. Um, and then just a little side note here, with good questions, sometimes they'll throw acronyms out there at you. Now, depending on the situation, right? You might have to ask them on the spot, hey, do you mind, what does LBT, whatever mean, right? Whatever the acronym is that they're throwing at you. Um, but other times, if you're on the phone with them or you're on a Zoom meeting, it's real easy to, and I've done this many times, just put in an acronym and put commercial, on Google, right? Commercial real estate. What does this acronym mean or whatever? And because there's so many different acronyms and so many different like terms that people use, and sometimes you'll come across, even if you've been doing this for a while, you'll come across terms you just never heard of, or acronyms, that you're just not familiar with, right? Because you've always used the entire word, or because you've never heard of it. So, anyways, get to know them personally, right? Be respectful of their time, but at the same time, little by little, get to know them, right? What are their quirks? Do they prefer to be called in the mornings, right? Do they prefer to be called in the afternoons, at lunchtime? What do they like? Do they have hobbies? Maybe you want to start, really developing a closer relationship with them, right? But get to know them personally. But you also got to gauge it, right? Because if you call them and you can tell that, you can hear it in their voice that they're, stressed out, that's not the right time to ask them questions about, whether or not they like pickleball or tennis, So, and then when they suggest something to you, right, that they would like, that's something that would be helpful to them, even if they don't ask you to do it, like go the extra mile, right? Because they might tell you, oh, okay, that's an interesting project. That land might work, but you know what? I'm concerned because I don't know if I'm going to have to put together, I'm going to have to incorporate into my development like a retention pond, right? So, and they're not asking you to do it, but why don't you call the city? Go, hey, hypothetically, if I was going to build, this here on this plot, would you guys require, a retention pond? And if so, go the extra mile, right? Like even further, right? Like, give me some details. What would be the requirements, right? What size would it need to be? Where would it need to be? So on and so forth, right? So they'll appreciate that, right? You know what I mean? Like they like people that are like go getters, they're scrappy. You'd be surprised, right? A lot of people in commercial real estate are kind of laid back. They don't move quick. So if you're on the ball and you're quick, um, yeah, it really is going to earn you a lot of brownie points, and those are good. So, anyways, I hope that was helpful. You know what I mean? I hope that you learned something from that. That kind of helped you a little bit with the mindset of understanding, kind of how to approach, right, these calls with developers. Keep in mind that, you know what I mean? If even you want to be humble, but at the same time, you're bringing something of value to them, right? So you just got to be able to present this in a concise, clear and concise way, and they're going to love you for it, right? Because you're bringing value if it's truly a good deal. So, anyways, if you have any questions or you'd like me to mentor you, go ahead and shoot me an email. It's at askramonquestions at gmail.com. So that's askramonquestions at gmail.com. Let me move this out the way. It's right there, as you can see. So anyways, hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Thanks.